Excellent. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning to all. Great to have you already online. We are still expecting some people based upon the registrations that we got. Already some colleagues informed us that they would be a bit later, so no worries. Let's just kick off, and then colleagues will join in. Just to start on an official note, my name is Nick Thijs, and I am leading the service delivery and digital team within the OECD Sigma. Great to have you. I see a lot of familiar names and faces on screen. So great that we have you also in this webinar. Just allow me to quickly share my screen to talk you in and also to introduce you to the colleagues in the agenda today. As some of you might know, but still I think good to remember, because it has been a while since we met online. This topic of today and this webinar of today is the third in a series of webinars that we are hosting as the OECD Sigma. The third one, because previously we had some other webinars earlier this year in February, March, related to behavioral insights. Then we had another one related to artificial intelligence in service delivery. That was in May, if I'm not mistaken. So a while before summer. And now we decided to take up this one, as we promised to do, on Omni and Multi-channel service design and delivery. And then in the early weeks or months of next year, we will then close this series related to interoperability and also to digital identity and the IDAS 2.0, the new Interoperability Act. So we will closely work together with the colleagues and friends in the European Commission for this one. So the series in 2003 will extend a bit into the year 2004 as well. As some of you might know and recall, is that this is not the first series that we are organizing. This is already the third one. We started initially during the peaks of COVID. We started with these webinars, and first one we did on a whole series on live events, and then last year we had some sessions related to the measurement, related to the involvement, the user-centric design as well. So all of this material, for the colleagues who are interested, you can still find on the Sigma website. All the materials are there in terms of presentations, but also the full recordings of this session and of these sessions, as also will be the case of today's one. Now, coming closer to today, today a topic on Omni and Multi-channel. As all of you have received the agenda, we are quite happy and pleased to bring together very interesting speakers. Today, starting off with colleague Willem Pietersson, originally from the Netherlands, but now living and working in the UK, and really an expert on this channel design, Omni and multi-channel strategies, supporting a lot of public sector organizations, countries, in developing a strategy, an approach. And Willem will guide us into the wonderful world of Omni and multi-channel, in the concepts, but also in some of the thinking behind some of the trends going on. Soon after, Willem will be joined by Zakia, working for the Dutch municipalities, the body or the Association of Dutch Municipalities, really showcasing and showing how this omni-channel approach is currently applied in the Netherlands. And Willem will then come back on the Dutch case, but also bringing in some other experiences, linking really the theory to practice. And so from the concept where we'll start with, really getting the illustration from the Dutch case, and also some further comments by Willem on this one. Then we will be moving towards the region. So first of all, we have the friends from Montenegro, who will highlighting us and giving us all insights into the e-health platform, which is currently in full swing, guided by the health insurance fund of Montenegro. So we have Vladimir Rajkovic with us, who will give us the full insights into what the colleagues have been doing, how the system is working, but also what are like future developments. And then before having a full discussion, we're also really grateful to have Emir Ramadanovic with us from the USAID in Bosnia and Herzegovina, where they have been working for a while on the e-construction permitting system. And Emir will also guide us into all the work that he and with the whole team they have been doing recently on this. So all of this just to talk you briefly through the agenda. I will not take much more time and give full time to the presenters, to the experts today. Just as a practical note, I would suggest when speakers have presented their presentation or have done their story, of course, if you have questions, that you raise your virtual hand as we used to do. So raise your hand, and always happy then to take some questions immediately on the spot after the presentation, or if we need to park some of the questions. I also have Goran Pastrovic with me here today, and Goran was super helpful in designing this, but also the previous webinars. And so also in the discussion, Goran will also guide me in seeing who has asked the floor, which questions did we have to park, so that we will also have a nice discussion towards the end, coming close to lunchtime and even passing a bit. Voila, so with all of this, I will stop sharing, and I would ask Willem to take over and to guide us into the concepts, the methodology, the background. So please, Willem, feel free to share your screen.
Thank you, Nick.
The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for having me today here. I have a little bit of a cold, so if I sound a little bit nasally, then my sincerest apologies. Hopefully it'll get better soon, because Christmas is coming and I want to be better for Christmas and party season. But that should not stop us from having some fun today about multi-channel service delivery. And Nick has already given a nice introduction about me, so I'm not going to say too much about myself. But I've been working in this space for about 15 years, and indeed I've been linking theory to practice. So my background is in academia, so I've been doing a lot of sort of academic research on channel strategies, channel behaviors, and the like. But increasingly translating that into, what does it mean for practice, and what can government agencies learn from the things we see in theory and the research that we've been doing. So today is going to be a little bit of an interesting presentation, because I'm going to be dueling this with Sakia. Sakia is joining us in a little bit and will tell us a little bit about the sort of more technical aspects of what's happening in the Netherlands. I will explain that further on. Reason why she cannot be here full time is that there's a hackathon going on today where we're actually building stuff in the Netherlands. We're focusing on building several shareable components across governments that can be reused, and it can be used to link government agencies in creating better service delivery. And she'll tell us a little bit more about that later on. So she will jump in about 15 minutes, and I'm going to hand it over to her, and then I'm going to be indeed back to continue my presentation. In the sort of 15 minutes beforehand, I wanted to give a sort of quick overview of what we're doing today and what omni-channel service delivery is, and how it links to generations of service channel strategies, and why and how we are doing the things that we're doing. To sort of kick it off on a very, 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 very basic level, the field of omni-channel management and channel management in general has to do with the relationship between customers and governments. And we say customers because we mean all the sort of client groups that governments target. So that could be citizens, that could be businesses, that could be tourists, that could be anyone who has some kind of an interaction with government. And the key point here is that these interactions are always facilitated through something we call a channel. Whether I go online and get information from a government, whether I go in person somewhere to a front desk or a building, or whether I call or use my smartphone, there's always an entity, a medium involved in facilitating this relationship or facilitating this interaction. The key point here is that the number of channels that we have to facilitate this relationship has grown tremendously in the last 30 or so years. And I'll explain this evolution in some of the upcoming slides. But we have a lot of channels available to deliver services and maintain this relationship. And obviously, as you get more of these things, management of these things become harder. And that's one of the key challenges we're facing in improving service delivery. How do you manage these channels, and how do you make sure that what you want to achieve as a government, you do by deploying these channels? And that brings us to channel management, because as you start using different channels, and most government agencies do use multiple channels, so they will have a website, they will have email, they will have a phone number, they might have some social media. As you get more of these channels, you need to start managing them. And channel management then is the design, deployment, coordination, monitoring, and improvement of the channels through which these public organizations and their customers interact. So some kind of management infrastructure that is involved with design, coordination, monitoring, and improvement of the channel. So ultimately, channel management is a tool to help you improve service delivery and to help you improve the relationship between you and your customers. So it's not a goal by itself. It is a means to achieve other goals. And typically these goals are defined in terms of effectiveness. We want to get better at delivering services, or efficiency. We want to have fewer contacts so that we spend less money on service delivery, or customer satisfaction. We want to make our citizens more happy by delivering them better services and focusing on the quality of the interaction instead. So it's a means to an end, and different ways of achieving this goal have been developed over time. And this is a little bit of a complicated picture, and don't worry too much about this picture, because this picture is sort of the essence of what we're going to be talking about today. The evolution of how we're dealing with channels and why we are here based on where we're coming from is going to be the core point of the next sort of hour and a half. And obviously our focus is on the very end, what we're doing today, which is omni-channel service delivery, which is a sort of a more holistic approach towards channel management based on experiences in the past and sort of setting out a clear route to improve service delivery in the future. So once again, don't focus too much on this picture as is, because I'm going to explain this all through my presentation. But if you have questions, do let me know throughout this presentation, and there will be lots of time for discussion later on. So omni-channel management, Nick has said it several times, I've said it several times. What is it? Here's a sort of practical definition that Sakia and I came up with when we started doing omni-channel management in roughly 2018, 2019 in the Netherlands. And the key is that in multi-channel strategies, we used to have different channels and we would use to manage them somewhat independently. And in omni-channel management, we're starting to shift towards a more holistic approach. We need to manage all the channels as one unit. So in omni-channeling, the focus shifts towards the holistic interplay of all channels. And I will explain in much detail why and how this works. By bringing channels together rather than managing them independently, we can design them more smartly, we can integrate them tightly, and we can realize a better, more seamless and inclusive customer journey. And seamless and inclusive are key words here, and I'm going to repeat them a fair bit during this presentation. But the goal here is to make sure that citizens don't get stuck in their customer journeys. The goal here is to make sure that independent of the channel that citizens are using, they will be getting the same answer over and over and over again, independent of where they're starting, how they're starting, or what the objective is of their customer journey. More of this to come later on. And then the Dutch case. Why specifically are we doing this in the Netherlands? And why is the Netherlands such an interesting case to look at? Well, to sort of start there and why the Netherlands is interesting, the Netherlands has been one of the early adopters of the internet worldwide. We were one of the first countries that were connected to the internet outside of the United States. And the Dutch people have embraced digital channels pretty early on. So we still have fairly high levels of internet adoption. There are very high levels of digital skills in the Netherlands. I think the Netherlands ranks probably highest worldwide in their level of digital skills. And that has created early on demand from citizens, from governments, to deploy new channels. So citizens early on started asking for websites. They wanted to interact via email with governments. So early on, there was demand from the public to start deploying new types of service delivery options. And obviously, the government had to do something with that. Based on the introduction of those new digital channels in the early 90s, government started funding research to do so. So there's a long history of channel management research and development, specifically in the Netherlands. About 15 years ago, we had a very big multi-channel service delivery research project called Channels in Balance. The URL is on screen. You can go there and find a whole bunch of reports that were written about 15 years ago. And it was a nice academic sort of research project that funded part of my research as well. But it was probably the largest project to date looking into channel management research and development. So that we've pretty early on developed a big body of knowledge on public sector channel management service delivery in the Netherlands. Also very interesting, and I'll point this out later on when we take a deeper dive into the Dutch case, is the sort of fragmented nature of government. And I'll have some very interesting examples about this later on in my presentation. Most government agencies in the Netherlands are independent. So there are 400 plus municipalities in the Netherlands. They are legally and politically independent entities that are responsible for their own service delivery. So in the Netherlands, we have a long, long history of every single organization reinventing the wheel over and over and over again. So every government has their own website, they will have their own email, they will have their own services and processes in the background. So there's lots of fragmentation in the Netherlands. That is very opposed to the more integrated approaches of other countries. Take, for example, the United Kingdom, where I live right now, where we have one central government website, gov.uk, where you can basically do everything. So that's a very centralized approach to channel management. The Netherlands obviously works different, but because we still want to achieve things such as seamless customer journeys, we need to invest in channel management. We need to start coordinating over the boundaries of the organization. So if you want to deliver efficient and effective services, which the Dutch government wants to do, they need to focus heavily on channel management as a sort of concept. And that means that since roughly 2019, the Ministry of the Interior and Kingdom Relationships in the Netherlands has been funding a new program focused on omni-channel service delivery. It's been running since 2019, and so far we have funding for 2024 as well, but we're pretty confident that the future will continue as well. And we're doing three things within this program, and different organizations are involved in different parts of this program. The first is the development of the concept. And this is something that I think is very important and that few people understand. Omnichannel service delivery is relatively new. Marketing literature and private sector sales literature have been talking about omnichannel management since, well, the mid-2010s, so roughly 10 years ago. The first publications in the public sector literature started appearing a couple of years later. So we're talking 2017, 18, 19, but these were highly conceptual. They started talking about this notion of how do we manage these channels holistically and how do we create seamless customer journeys, but have very little insights into the how. How do you do this? What does this mean in practice? And that's sort of still where we stand today. So while we have some scientific evidence on, what it should be and how it should work, and I'm going to present a framework later on, conceptually, we're still very early on in what omnichannel management service delivery is. So one of the pillars in the program is to start exploring this. So we've assembled a group of experts, expert organizations in the Netherlands that are willing to invest in research on channel behaviors, on channel data, on the deployment of channels, on the design of channels, to start developing this concept and how it could work in practice. So that's part one of what we're trying to do. Part number two is the community, which is also managed by this organization called Gebruiker Centraal or User Central, which is basically sort of a design organization in the Netherlands that focuses heavily on sharing experiences. And that's the role of the community. Because once we have developed this concept and once we are starting building practical lessons, we need to share those lessons. So we're building a community of organizations in the Netherlands, people within those organizations that are interested in this topic and that are often responsible for service delivery, as well as strategy development or channel management themselves. So we have this nice interaction between concept and community, where community inspires the expert group that's developing the concept, and once things are tested and developed, they can be fed back into the community. The third part is what we call the components part. Well, I call it the components part, but the more formal name is the generic proactive services. And that's what Sakia is going to tell you all about. Because I told you that there's lots of fragmentation in the Netherlands. We have all these portals. Every organization is building its own website and it's building its own portal, and these need to talk to each other. Because very often as a citizen, I might have a question that affects multiple organizations. So organizations need to know what the status is of my application if I call one organization to talk about something that involves another organization. So we need to develop components or generic proactive services that will link the different channel infrastructures within and across government agencies to have them interact and make sure that content, data, services designs are all in sync. That part of the project is done through the body of municipalities, or the VNG in the Netherlands, and Sakia is the project manager doing that. So we have the 3 C's of omni-channel, and obviously there's a lot of knowledge sharing and ideation going on between those 3 parts of the project, which creates a very interesting infrastructure to learn and get insights from what's happening. Nick, has Sakia arrived yet?
She should be here.
She's here. Yay.
I'm here.
I see her
okay.
appearing because since we are a few minutes ahead of schedule, I'm also a few minutes ahead of schedule, and I would skip these slides if she wasn't here yet. But if she is here, she can take over from me, because I'm very happy to introduce Sakia for 2 reasons. The first is, as I said, she's sort of the project manager or the grand leader of developing the generic proactive services in the Netherlands, which is, I think, the most meaningful or most impactful part of the project as of now, because it's furthest along. The other reason is that she's sort of the instigator of developing omni-channel management in the Netherlands to begin with. She had the idea a couple of years ago to start looking into this concept and what it is and how it could work in government. And she's been relentlessly pushing this agenda to develop omni-channel service delivery in the Netherlands. So I'm quite pleased to introduce Sakia and have her take over while I click through her slides. Sakia, floor is yours.
Thank you, Willem. Thank you for the introduction, the warm introduction. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to do the presentation with you. For the people who don't know me, I'm Sakia Buzetta, and I'm a program manager for service delivery in the government, in the Dutch government. And for over the 15 years, I have been actively involved in optimizing work processes and customer interaction within the services delivery of both government and the business sector. In particular, I focused in the recent years throughout the Association of the Dutch Municipalities, the VNG, on the design and implementation of omni-channel and digital generic services for the government. And today I will briefly take you through the development of the track and trace service and the future direction of several proactive digital services for government organizations. Can you put the next slide, Willem? Thank you. Government portals are increasingly gaining popularity among various municipalities and government organizations. More and more products and services are being offered online for citizens to use. And citizens are increasingly seen purchasing products on local, national, and European levels through government portals, and also referred to as the online shops of the government. And what we see on the European level, there's an increasing focus on development aimed at growing towards compatibility among government organizations. And what you see here are some ambition outlines in the government agendas, where the emphasis is on prioritizing citizens and fostering an inclusive customer journey, as we know from the omni-channel. And the next slide, Willem. Why proactive and transparent services? Within the government, many studies can be found regarding customer needs. And what we observe among customer needs in municipalities in digital contact with the government are the following customer needs. And we aim to translate these into proactive and transparent service delivery. And when we zoom in on the digital and offline channels of the government, we see that there are significant numbers of status inquiries from citizens. And what we see is that citizens need clarity and want to avoid being bounced around. And 2 years ago, we initiated collaboration with pioneering municipalities to join forces and make track and trace status information available digitally and offline for citizens. And looking at the business case, it also incurs a sustainable amount of telephone costs. Next slide, please. And what you see here is the track and trace. So imagining ordering a product or service online and being able to track its journey through a store, knowing exactly when to expect it and when the steps are yet to unfold. This helpful thing called the track and trace and is now common in the business or in the commercial enterprises. It makes things easy and it feels like personal for people. However, when it comes to government services, track and trace is still in its infancy. From the government, we currently have a passive stance that needs to evolve towards a proactive approach. And with the introduction of My Cases, the track and trace service, as you see, we are pioneering an innovative approach to government services, drawing inspiration from the successful track and trace method employed by commercial enterprises. And while online orders can be seamlessly tracked, transparency in government services is still in its early ages. Building on the success of the last 2 years, where 20 municipalities actively using the track and trace service, we aim to expand ahead with 20 new leading municipalities and other government organizations in the next new year. So what we see is the initiative involves implementing the My Cases service as a user-friendly solution, providing citizens and employees within organization and transparent and straightforward insight to the status of their application for a product and service. The goal is to apply the familiar convenience and the personalized approach of the commercial track and trace. Next slide, please, Willem. So these are some quotes from user experience of citizens with the track and trace system from the users' researchers of the municipalities. We observe quite clearly that it meets the needs for convenience, trust, and the personal approach. And testing on user needs is very important to know what we are doing is good. Next slide, please. Well, this is what you see. Here you can see how the track and trace looks on the mobile phone for the citizens. It's a request for a product to address noise pollution for residences. And from the case system, the status display becomes visible to citizens. And My Cases is also valuable for employees to respond promptly to citizens by employee portals when they receive a phone call or someone is on the counter. And My Cases track and trace is a system that is being developed by suppliers of the municipalities. And what we do from the government is the development of quality agreements for a generic proactive service delivery. It's a solution that can be implemented by all governments. From an omni-channel approach, we want independency of product, channels, and organizations. And what we see is the services are shaped through collaboration between the market and the government. and the suppliers of the pilots, municipalities develop the managing the My Cases to be applied in the case management system, and UX and UI design in the channels where My Cases is visible for the citizens. Together with government organizations, we are developing proactive generic quality agreements for both the market as well for the government organizations. On the one hand, we're developing the setup of My Cases in the front end on the touch system components and making interaction patterns shareable. And on the other hand, we're setting up backend for the integration of the case management application program interfaces, also known as the APIs. So what we see is My Cases, the track and trace system, what municipalities provide for the citizens now, it contributes to proactive and transparent service delivery. Next slide, please. Well, you see here more services. From our Association of Dutch Municipalities, the VNG, there are 3 projects within the framework what you see here of the program Omni-channel. From the government, we also have a law that came into effect on July 1, 2024, and concerning the proper set of a bi-directional communication throughout digital channels. And what we are doing is we're preparing municipalities to be ready to start on. In addition to My Cases, what you see here is other services have emerged and are currently in development within the government portals, such as notification service, notification from an email or SMS that the customer receives, consisting an informative message and any task or interaction such as a tip or suggestion can be made. And we draw inspiration from the development from UK, like the Notify. It's an open source code what we can use also to send email and SMS from government view. If you look at the service My Message, you see that what we are developing there is a notification that consists an informative message, a task or interaction. My task service is an action that needs to be performed, usually taking place within the government portals. And if we look at the My Contact moments, it displays contact moments in the government portals where the resident has the established contact with the municipalities and vice versa. So the history with the contact with the government is being seen. And for 2024, a new service that we also developed in the new year is the My Profile service, a user account where personal information and preferences can be managed, including adjustments with such a channel preference. And that's what it makes it very nice when it is about omni-channel approach. And next slide, please. And what you see here, the services align with the generic customer journey process, like the track and trace, My Cases, and as well with the process for the municipality. So this allows us to modularly build upon even better services for our citizens. Integrated services in the portals that gives more and better services for citizens, but also for employees. Next slide, please. Well, we have reached to the end of my presentation. Maybe there are some questions.
Before opening the floor to questions, first of all, thank you so much, Zakia, for making yourself available. We know that how busy you are always, but especially in these days. So really, really appreciate it to make some time for us and for the audience to chip in and to make this really, really lovely presentation. I'm just keeping an eye on the chat. So if colleagues would like to post a question in the chat, please do so. If colleagues would like to raise their hand and come in with the question, it is also possible. So I see, I'm trying to see, yeah, there is one hand. So please, Goran, you can take the floor, should be possible. If not, I unmute you.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Zaki, and thank you, Willem. It's really interesting topic. I was wondering, after listening about how do you design the concept for omnichannel service delivery in the Netherlands, particularly for the municipalities, have you in the past experienced analysis of so-called channel cannibalism, even though it's mostly seen as a phenomena in retail market? Have you had a chance to see it happening in public sector, and have you possibly took the lessons learned for this concept design for omnichannel service delivery for Dutch municipalities? Thank you.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and perhaps Sakia can jump in. I'm going to talk about channel cannibalism in a little bit in detail. Yes, it does happen. Because obviously things like mailing forms via the physical post is something that doesn't really happen as much anymore. So there's clearly cannibalism going on there, and same with things like fax machines and the like. So it does happen. At the same time, we're seeing this tendency in government to bring in more and more and more channels rather than channel cannibalism happening or channel abandonment happening. And that's something I think we need to put on the agenda more, because it should be a realistic option. But it doesn't really happen as much. So yes, there is channel cannibalism, but not as much and not as strongly as in the private sector. And that's something to discuss more later on. But Sakia, perhaps you have some additional insight.
Yeah, you have told a lot, Willem. It's true. We are now in a situation, the multi-channel. So we have a lot of channels in the silos in different departments, and what we see is also the increasing of digital channels, and also the things like the technology like the AI. We're also now in development in the government, like what we have to do with it and all. So on the other hand, you see a enormous amount of channels, offline, online, and then on the other side also the discussions are about what we have to do regulated and in that form. I think that, yeah, the omni-channel is perceiving for citizens that not going well with digital channels to help them also in offline channels. But what you have seen also in my presentation, there's also a challenge for employers. Employees cannot do their work well if they not have a central data of forms, of channels, how someone is coming in and out with the organization, the communication with the organization. So that is very important, that the amount of channels is not by far that it will be good. So less also can be good.
Thank you so much, Zakia. Thanks, Willem. Other questions? I just need to check if for the attendees, if you would like to raise your hand, if this is possible, if this is doable, or otherwise we need to just invite all attendees into the meeting, Esmeralda, because it seems that
And they can raise their hands, and we
they can raise their hands.
Yes, and we'll
Okay. So colleagues, kindly re-inviting you again. If you have some questions in general or particular, certainly now for Zakia, as she needs to move soon, then this is something. I have a question in the chat from Sasha. I will just read it out loud, and then Zakia or Willem or Willem. So the question is as follows: does the omni-channel include the establishment and existence of a contact center? Or does it refer only to internal communication within the company/organization? Please, Willem, Zakia.
So customer contact centers, if they exist, should definitely become part of an omni-channel strategy. In fact, it's one of the start building blocks, I would say, because ideally in an omni-channel strategy, you want to have all your channels under the management of one central unit. And typically your customer contact center is one of the bigger units that is responsible for customer contacts. If there is no customer contact center, I would start by building an omni-channel contact center and no customer contact center that only does, let's say, telephone or email, the sort of common channels that you find in these types of environments. But I'll talk about that also in more detail in the next 45 minutes.
Super. Thanks, Willem. Anything to add, Zakia? Please do so. If not, I will keep an eye on the chat and on the hands, on the virtual hands.
Yes. On behalf of Willem, it's very important to know how your citizens is interacting with you. And that's the thing. And if it's a contact center, maybe outside the government, also in the neighborhood, and it works, it's good. What we have to approach and to work on is an integrated citizens approach. So we know what they need. And sometimes they need one product, but sometimes they need 5 products. So it's the challenge for an organization to fix your channels, online and offline, integrated, so you know how the communication can be approached. And what you want is the approachment of the questions that come in and the answer that you give, that it's in one time good. That's the challenge that you have and what your goal is.
Super. Thank you so much, Zakia. We will come back to this point again about analyzing the needs and the expectations. I have one other question coming from Margus from the GIZ in Kosovo. A question: if you have KPIs on the channels and how the data is collected and how this is being used. So if you have some figures, some stats, I think that could be really helpful.
We'll also come later on in the presentation. We're going to be talking extensively about KPIs and data. You guys are asking way too many questions way too early on in the in the session. We'll get there.
Well, I think this is setting nicely the direction of and the expectations for your presentation, Willem. So
I'm taking notes and I'm going to try and circle back to everything that's been asked so far.
Super. So we keep these things on the board, and if they're not answered by the end of your presentation, I will shoot them again. No worries. Thanks for the for the question, Margus. Thanks for the question. Good. Any other questions for certainly for Zakia now? Because she needs to leave us soon. So just a last and final call. If any questions, then please speak up or be silent forever. I don't see any hands. I don't see any questions in the chat immediately. So with this, thank you once more, Zakia. I see a last-minute hand from Goran. That was really like on the buzzer, Goran.
I really wanted to leave the space for the others. I was challenged a bit thinking after your presentations how the future trends such as use of AI will be integrated with this decentralized option that you're opting for of omnichannel service delivery, in particular because we have a challenge of data quality, data sourcing, and so decisions made by the help of the AI, how this phenomena and challenges brought by the AI will be actually integrated for the sake of having efficient, effective customer experience, preventing that any kind of, so to say, failures that may raise from the mentioned factors can be abolished or minimized.
Yes, Goran, I hear you. We are not at the moment yet about AI technology, but because we are developing now a good basis for customer services delivery. But we know that AI, from out the government, there's a lot of discussions about employees using well or not ChatGPT. But we believe that in the customer contact center, if you're looking at the business side, the business sector, they are using AI on the telephone, like questions that came in, and you recognize questions that you can, with the KPIs where Willem's going to talk about, it makes your services better because you're recognizing the questions, the same questions over and over again. Then you know there's something wrong, you know, because why is the question coming in again and again and again, and why are we bouncing people? So AI, I think, with regulation, we and with privacy and security, we can establish a better service for the service delivery for citizens. I think that's it, but it's early stage, and I think that the government also has to have some regulation and quality agreements for using. I hope so, to answer your question.
Thank you. I understood the data quality will definitely be ultimate standard to look after, no matter is it AI, cloud computing, quantum computing, or any other technology that is to come or that is already
Indeed.
used. Thank you once again, and good luck with the hackathon.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Also, good luck all.
Thank you so much, Zakia. Thanks again for all the efforts. Thanks for this excellent presentation and taking the time also to answer the questions. So looking forward to meeting in the future again. Bye-bye.
So, bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye, Zakia.
So Willem, back to you, I would say then, for the
yes,
making the link between the first part and the practice even
yes.
furthermore. Yes, please.
We're gonna start for real. And if you haven't written down Zakia's email address yet, she'll be on the very last slide as well, so you can still do it there, and we can also make the slides available if you want to reach out to Zakia and get more information about what she's doing in the Netherlands. I want to sort of circle back and pick up where we left off and tell you the long and complicated history of why we are where we are and why we're doing the things that we're doing and why omni-channel might be the way forward. And that we call the long and complicated history. And it's long and complicated because it takes us back about 30 years in history, and then we can start, telling this story based on research and insights. And I'm going to have lots of pretty pictures to look at in the next 45 or so minutes. So remember, we're focusing on customers and the government and the interaction they have, so the services that governments provide to citizens and the interactions they have around these services. There's three main questions that we need to understand if we want to build good channel management strategies. The first is how people use channels. So what are the needs, wishes, desires, behaviors, and preferences of our citizens? And how can we use those insights to build sufficient channel management strategies? The opposite of that, obviously, is how governments manage channels. So how do governments take this data and how do governments translate their own goals into appropriate channel management strategies? So we have channel behaviors and we have channel management. And the intersection of that is the changes in the channel landscape. Because we have so many changes in the channel landscape, and I will detail those in a little bit, that channel behaviors change, and they change continuously. And therefore, channel management strategies change continuously and even more quickly as the changes in technology start accelerating. So if we want to fully understand channel management and omni-channel service delivery, we need to understand those three topics. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing. And we're going to start with the channel landscape, because that is obviously the technology is changing and technology is driving a lot of channel behaviors, demands from citizens, for example, but also the way in which governments are responding to these behaviors and might be having their own technological agendas. And this channel landscape is interesting. And I've mentioned this before, we're seeing more and more and more channels appearing on the scene. So back in the days, in the early 80s, early 90s, we roughly had three ways of delivering our services. We had, phone numbers, we had in-person interactions on a counter, front desk, and we had forms that we could mail into a government agency. So there were three ways of interaction. The internet comes along, and that brings us websites, and that brings us email. And after we get more evolution of digitalization and further development of the internet, we get social media channels. So we get things such as Facebook and Twitter and WhatsApp and YouTube and the like. So we get social media channels. After that, we get the mobile revolution. So Apple launches its iPhone and we get mobile channels, dedicated mobile channels using apps, but also tweaked mobile channels, let's say adaptive websites that translate to your mobile screen. Then we get the intelligent revolution. So we get chatbots, we get conversational bots, we get intelligent agents such as the Siris and the Cortanas and the OK Googles that might help us with certain things that we're doing. And lately, we're seeing a lot of OpenAI, ChatGPT kind of applications that make service delivery or interactions more smart. And then we also have things like AR and VR that are being explored by governments, for example, in public space planning or design of public spaces. So we're getting more and more and more and more channels. And the reality of channel management and the reality of what governments do is that they start using these channels. I have some data about that in a little bit. But it's not just more channels. We're also seeing various evolutions within those channels. So we don't just have websites, but now we have websites for desktop. We have websites for mobile, and we have websites for tablets. Often they scale, sometimes they're dedicated. But it does mean that in the design of this channel, you need to account for the different form factors of these devices to make sure that they adapt properly. And still, filling out a form on mobile is not as user-friendly in most cases than filling out a form on a desktop website. That creates issues, especially as users start using mobile phones more and more and more to do government service delivery. We're also often thinking that one sort of concept is one set of channels, but they're not. We often say we have social media as a channel, but there are so many different social media with so many different characteristics. Something like WhatsApp, which is a direct chat application, is incomparable to a more forum-esque social media such as Facebook, or a video-based social media platform such as YouTube or TikTok. They have very different characteristics from a communication media theory perspective. So transferring information via video is a very different way of information transfer than a direct interaction on WhatsApp. So we need to account for that if we build channel strategies and take those differences into account. And then lastly, we've been talking about chat and we've been talking about chat channels, and there's different evolutions of chat and different permutations of chat channels. So we can have human chat where a customer is directly chatting with another human, a customer service agent, for example, in a customer contact center, or it could be a simple bot, a rule-based bot, or it could be a smart bot built on ChatGPT. Depending on how you bring this into production, you might have different levels of acceptance or trust from your end users, and you might have different quality levels of your interaction, maybe affecting what happens in other channels. For example, if you have a really crappy chatbot, and most standard chatbots are not very good, you'll likely end up having more customer contacts because your citizen will start on a website, will subsequently go to interact with your chatbot if they cannot find the information, doesn't trust what the chatbot is saying, or the chatbot says something rubbish, and your citizen will start calling. So you end up with 3 customer interactions, where maybe in the end, one would have sufficed. So not just are we seeing more and more channels, we're also seeing more and more permutations of different channels appearing on the scene, making the landscape complicated. We're also seeing that channels by themselves are changing in the way they interact and the sort of communication characteristics that they have. This is on the left, you see the website, the earliest website of the VDAB. The VDAB is the public employment service in Flanders, in Belgium, and they were one of the earlier organizations in Europe to have their own website. And this obviously is very 1990s. It has a few pictures, it has some text, and that is it. This is what it looks right now. It's very communication rich. You can search, you can browse, you can navigate and structure the information in different ways. There's even different types of search in this website. You can have the website talk to you by the speak out loud function. So this website has evolved and it provides a much richer experience now than it did in the past. So thinking about the capabilities of the communication capabilities of these media, you unlock different possibilities as technology evolves. So we're seeing an increasingly complicated channel landscape where channels evolve, channels permeate, and more channels appear on the scene. And like I mentioned earlier, do governments start using all these channels? Yes, they do. We did some research in Latin America a couple of years ago, where we asked public employment services in Latin America, like, what are you doing channel-wise, and are you deploying certain channels to reach certain audiences? And most of these channels, and some of these are ones that I mentioned before, are being used. Well, most of them are being used in some kind of channel mix. And the lesson here, and we've done this research as well in Europe, and I've done the same research in South Asia. The lesson is, as you start creating more channels, governments will start using these channels for various reasons. Oftentimes, it's because they think that having more channels will serve their population better. But very oftentimes, it's also political. It's trying to be innovative. It's trying to be modern. So, for example, it's very often that you see, a politician saying that we want to have a chatbot because it's a nice, shiny new object, and it's something that leads to a nice PR moment that can showcase how innovative the organization is. So the general lesson is, more channels leads to more organizations using more and more channels, and that creates issues, as what we see later on. So how is this affecting channel behaviors as we start building more and more channels and start throwing more channels in the mix? Well, first of all, channel behaviors are shifting, and channel behaviors are flexible over time. This is a graph from research that I've been doing in the Netherlands, comparing the sort of channel preferences of the broader population between 2008 and 2017. So there's a nice 10-year gap that showcases how channel behaviors and preferences have shifted over time. So going somewhere in person, which was still relatively popular in 2008, has dropped pretty much entirely in 2017 because of the evolution of online services. So online services has gotten much and much better. Citizens trust online services much more because they work well. So fewer and fewer people prefer to go to an office. Is that channel cannibalism? To an extent, but not entirely, as we will also see further on. So these behaviors shift, and what we're seeing in general, looking at most countries in the world, we see that channels behaviors in general are shifting towards the online channel, so websites and emails, especially in those countries with mature internet infrastructures. So there needs to be, good speeds, reliable speeds, and people need to have access to those internet offerings. The online services need to be relatively well developed, and there needs to be a little bit of nudging and help. So pushing people, advertising your online channels will get your citizens there. And that's something that we see all over the world. That also means that it is indeed a good way to save money. Building and investing in online services can help you reduce the load in your offline channels where customer contacts tend to be more expensive. We'll see some data about this later on. So yeah, there's changes in those channel behaviors, but are they complete? No, they're not. And I'll showcase that in some other data from the same research. So we also asked citizens in both 2008 and 2017 that suppose you have to do something simple, like changing our address. How would you do that? And that's where we see that, people are shifting their behaviors from doing this via the phone to doing this via a website. So for certain tasks, you see indeed that there's a shift in what people prefer to do. But in other situations, we see that the picture is quite different and a little bit more complicated. So if you have to do something complicated, so let's say you lose your job and thereby you lose your house and you might end up in divorce and you need to get money from the government to support you to make sure that you can get back on your feet. Things are quite different. And we see that the preference for the telephone has actually increased a little bit, but certainly not dropped. So we see that these channels have their place depending on the situation. And even though in general, people prefer to start doing more and more things online, this does not apply to every single situation and every single type of government service, which is an interesting notion. So to a large extent in our research, we're finding that differences in channel choices for different tasks and situations persist. And this has a lot to do with the characteristics of the different channels. So getting an answer and having interaction, yeah, obviously that's impossible on a website. But getting clarification and getting understanding and reducing ambiguity, yeah, that's where something like the telephone comes in, because you have a direct response and you have, things like the tone of voice, and you hear something from a human where trust levels tend to be higher. So depending on the channels, we're seeing that, different services might be fit for different channels in different situations for different types of the population. So what we're seeing in general is that channel preferences and uses are shifting towards online channels, but this shift is incomplete. And a range of channels is still needed in most countries to service all citizens in all situations. So you need to have an appropriate channel mix. Furthermore, we're seeing that these preferences and behaviors differ between different types of people. So we're always saying that, we have things like the digital divide, where the old people don't use the internet and young people are online, and once all the old people are gone, no longer amongst us, the digital divide will be gone. Well, that's a fallacy, because we're seeing that digital skills and digital usage correlates more strongly with things like education than with age. So we're seeing that lower educated people and people from deprived area have lower levels of digital skills, and they can often not find the information that they're looking for online. And those people will start calling you and will show up in your offices because they cannot do what they're supposed to be doing online, because they lack the digital skills or the bureaucratic skills to navigate the complex world of government service delivery. So different people have different perceptions, preferences, and behaviors, which also leads us to conclude that so far, channel behaviors in general are complicated and often multiplex across channels. And remember that concept. I will explain it in a little bit. Across channels, services, layers of organizations, and organizations amongst themselves. Thus, channel behaviors are increasingly fragmented. And also keep that term in mind. That brings us to then channel management. How are governments responding to the changes in the channel landscape and the changes in channel behaviors? Well, let's go back here again to the good old days when the world was very simple. We had phone, we had in-person, and we had all these forms that you could pick up, fill out, and mail in. And we even had, single channel strategies or multiple channel strategies, where basically you could do as a citizen, you could pick a channel and you could do anything you wanted to do there. You can go in person and fill out a form, or you can collect a form and fill the form and mail it. So you had multiple channels where you can do things in parallel if you wanted to do that. So the world was pretty straightforward. The world became more complicated when we saw those new electronic channels arrive. So we get websites and we get emails, and at the same time we get something called the .com hype, where stock markets go through the roof, and there's a lot of excitement about the possibilities of these online digital channels. And this hype translates into sort of euphoric optimism about the possibilities of online communication and online public service delivery. So we see things like, programs in the Netherlands and the scientific literature being overly optimistic about the possibilities of the internet to transform public service delivery. Basically, the consensus at the time was, in 5 years, everybody will go online, and we will have no more physical offices, and we will have no more customer contact centers. And that led to that basic idea of replacement or cannibalism. So the optimism at the time was, one online channel is going to replace a bunch of traditional offline channels that we have. So we're getting more and more variations of channel strategies, of ways in which you can deal with your service delivery channels. And obviously this cannibalism has happened to some extent. Nobody uses fax machines anymore, with some exceptions. In the UK, we're still using faxes between government agencies, and apparently Japan is also still fairly big on the fax machine. But in general, I've not met a single citizen in a single country in the last 10 years that has ever sent a fax to a government agency. So yes, cannibalism does happen. So this notion of replacement starts sticking. But what happened in reality is a quite different picture than this, optimism of, we're going to have one channel and one channel to rule them all. The reality was that as we started throwing more channels in the mix, we started getting more interactions. So having a website and having a more mature website led in most countries to more phone calls as well. So rather than seeing fewer interactions via fewer channels, we saw more interactions via more channels. The main reason for this, obviously, was that, initially those websites were not very good. So you couldn't really do what you had to do, and you couldn't find the information, so what you were looking for. So what happened was the government would say, oh, we are so cool now and we're online, so go online to do your stuff. But citizens would then go online, couldn't do their stuff online, and had to call still anyways. So you get two interactions rather than one. So after the hype, we're seeing that the world starts getting complicated and we start getting more contacts rather than fewer. And this is a picture from the Dutch Tax and Customs Administration. I have the same data from Denmark and from the UK and from Norway. It happens everywhere. So this is sort of universal in most, at least, developed countries. What we're also seeing then is that even though the total number of contacts increases tremendously, we do start seeing that different people start using different channels for different purposes. So I did some research and I asked people, let's say you need to do banking services. What channel would you use if you wanted to transfer money? And what channel would you use if you wanted to get a mortgage? And this is data from 29. And you start seeing that indeed already back in those days, people start developing different preferences to do different things via different channels. So obviously transferring money, even in 15 years ago, people would want to do that online, whereas getting a mortgage, people would say, no, I will still want to do that in person. So even back in those days, you start seeing the split of using different channels for different purposes by different user groups. That then also has led to new types of approaches to channel management. Because if the internet is not going to, or if websites are not going to be the one channel to rule them all, what are we then going to do? So we get a new approach, which could be argued as the sort of first multi-channel approach to government service delivery. And the idea here would be to exploit those differences between the different channels. So if we want to do simple things online and complicated in person, then why not design our channels along those lines? Why not put the simple services on the internet and the complicated stuff in person, and then we have a good sort of channel service fit? So you get this idea of supplementation. One channel is good for one thing, another channel is good for another thing, and let's design our strategy around the strengths and weaknesses of the different channels.
Can I just chip in here, Willem? On the,
yes.
I think it's on the previous, also on the previous slide when you showed this research data dating back 2009, I think you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Would you say that this is still like valid today, or would you say that things have largely changed over this 10, 15 years even? Yeah.
So this picture is not valid anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because even getting a mortgage, most people nowadays will do that online, which is in line with my earlier picture about the general preferences of the population. But in certain instances, like the graph I showed a while before, these things persist. So if I have to do something complicated with government,
mm-hmm.
So if I lose my job, or if I want to build a house in a very complicated environment where there's a river flowing next to my house, and I might have a neighbor who's doing some weird stuff, there might be a military proving ground down the road. So I'm in this very complicated situation. That's where we're seeing that people will still prefer to do things via other channels than, let's say, you have a very straightforward and simple case. So yeah, in many situations, so when things are complicated, when things are ambiguous, when things are personally important to you, and when things involve a lot of money, people will still prefer to do things in person. But you also have to realize that what in person means is very different from person to person. So people will like to speak to a human, but some people say a human over the phone is good enough for me. And other people will say, no, I want to sit down in an office and I'll have an actual conversation with a cup of coffee with a human being. So yeah, in some ways, we still see that this sort of split holds, where to a large degree, different people will prefer to use different channels for different purposes. So you get this idea of supplementation, using different channels for different purposes, and that makes sense. Remember how we talked about communication properties of channels? So direct interactions you can do over the phone, but email, there's always going to be a gap between what you say, and on an email I can only type text, but if we have an in-person interaction, I can see your body language and I can see your face, and you get more cues in your communication. If we were to exploit that, we can start mixing and matching channels and services and create an optimal mix. That seems ideal, but obviously there are challenges because it never works that way. Big reason why it doesn't work that way is that A, we're very poor at designing channels to do the right thing, and B, customer behaviors don't follow that simple notion of what we call task medium fit. If we fit the characteristics of our task or our service to the characteristics of our medium or channel, then we have a sort of optimal fit. But this optimal fit differs from citizen to citizen, for example, depending on your digital or bureaucratic skills. And what we're seeing is that in many instances, people cannot do stuff online, even if they're supposed to do so, because they don't have the skills or because the design of the channel is insufficient. So in some research in the Netherlands, we've been seeing that not being able to find information online is something that happens to 60% of all the people that went to that website, or not knowing where the information is happens to a similar 60%. So even though you should be able to do stuff online, it doesn't always happen that way, and citizens aren't always capable of finding that information. We're also seeing that in some of the work that Saki has been doing. So we're seeing high volumes about such things such as status updates. So people expect to do something online, but they can't, and then they start calling. So we're seeing in call centers that we're getting a lot of questions about status updates, and sometimes they are available online, sometimes they're not, but citizens often cannot find them or don't know that they are available. And that brings us to multiplexity. And remember how I said that we have this simple notion of fitting services to channels and how that could be ideal. The reality of citizens' channel behaviors is complicated. And very often we're seeing something like this happening. A citizen gets a letter from government saying that they have to do something. Citizen will go online, cannot find the information, will go to another website, often Google, to find the information they're looking for, cannot find the information, start calling, and on the phone, then customer service agent says, well, you need to send us an email and then we'll help you further along. So you get, in what should be one interaction, you get multiple interactions in one customer journey. What happens even more often is, and this explains that picture that I showed from the Dutch Tax and Customs Organization, you get a same letter from government saying like, you owe us money. I go online to find more information about what's going on. I cannot find the information, and I will call the tax authorities while looking at their website. We've been collecting data from several government agencies, and we're seeing that in many organizations, up to 40% of all the people that are calling you are looking at your website at that exact same moment. And they will ask you one of two things. They will ask you either, I'm looking at your website and I cannot find the information that I'm looking for, or they will say, I'm looking at your website, I'm seeing this information, can you verify for me that this is indeed correct information? So once again, you're getting multiple interactions around the same topic using different channels, leading to multiplex channel and complicated behaviors. So multiplexity, citizens choose and use a combination of channels sequentially or in parallel in what could be considered one service delivery contact. The other lesson here is that as you start throwing more channels into your channel mix, because of this multiplexity, your customer journeys inherently will become more complicated, leading to channel management issues. Because how are you going to make sure that the content across all these channels is the same? So very often we're seeing that if I call the tax authorities, and then that's also research we've done. So suppose you're a citizen and you call the tax authorities with one question, you get answer A. If I put down the phone and I call again 10 minutes later and I get a different agent, I get a completely different answer because they interpret the information differently. Or looking online has different information than what the customer contact center has in their knowledge bank, because these systems are not aligned and content is not updated at the same time or different completely because they're different systems under different ownership. So you get more and more complexities in the way that citizens use your channels as you start adding more channels to the mix.
Can I just, Willem, chip in here, because I think this is an interesting one on the well, aligning or making sure that that the content and the answers are, well, similar and correct, not only similar but also correct. Yeah. There was also I think an interesting question, just opening the debate here from Tomislav in the chat. So I don't know, Tomislav, if you would like to open your microphone and just to put it directly here, should be able to do
yes.
so.
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear, Tomislav. Hey, good morning, by the way.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you for, I actually find on LinkedIn and you know, next week we have Bosnia and Herzegovina team here on One Stop Shop. And so I think your presentation is quite welcomed, you know, for us, because, you know, I'm heading the quality management service in Croatia, actually setting up the standards. And you know, actually, my question was around. It was on the first slides, proactive government. You know, because we now went very deep into the channel management. What we are struggling with is now in Croatia is cutting down number of steps, so redesigning the processes. You know, and I mean, when today speaking about forms, it's outdated. I must say. You know, since you know we have all the data. For example, I mean, 5 years ago, we need to fulfill some form for identity card. Now we don't need to do anything in Croatia. You know, it's fulfilled by the clerk. So even though I don't know why they need this piece of paper. You know, it's just another step. So my question is, you know,
and now I'm losing you.
Presented, you know, this proactive government. So I mean, when we are thinking about channels, we must know exactly who are our clients, you know, in terms of, because government cannot choose the clients, you know, we have this, so we have also disabled people to think about and what is channel for them. And we have fully digital equipped and literate people. So these are the dimensions. Yeah. So it's you know, the Netherlands and UK.
We are losing you from time to time, Tomislav. And now completely.
About the channel management, what we are speaking about today. Thank you.
Thanks, Tomislav. We just lost you for 10 seconds, but maybe Willem picked up the most important things.
Well, I'm not entirely sure what the question is, but I will speak a little bit more about proactivity, but I will also speak a little bit more about understanding customer journeys and analyzing customer journey data, and that will get very close to where we need to be.
Super.
So I think I'm going to answer your question, but if I don't, please come back later on. Super. I need to start speeding up a little bit because we're already a little bit behind when I took over from Sakia again, and we're running more and more behind because I still have a bunch of slides left. So I'm going to go a little bit quick through the next bit. So we do know that, you know, because people get stuck on websites, they will start calling you while looking at your website. And we know that, you know, 25 and sometimes 40% of all people will do that. But we also know that, especially in the Netherlands, an average phone call will cost your organization 8 to 10 euros. An email is even more expensive. So anything you can do to eliminate this, because these are unnecessary contacts, will save you money. And you can only do this if you analyze the data. And I will get there. But did this point to problems with channel management? And here's some more resources about this topic. And you can find those in the slides and then Google them or send me an email and I will share them with you. So one way to solve this issue of people failing in one channel and going to another channel is to start developing more multi-channel strategies that have higher levels of integration or cross-channel functionality. So this is where the term cross-channel comes from. How can we make sure that people do actually end up where they need to be? And there's two ways to do that. The first is by developing detection mechanisms of channel failure in one channel so that we can guide people into another channel. So for example, if we see that somebody is struggling on the website, for example, because they show behavior such as pogo sticking. Pogo sticking is when somebody goes on a website, goes from your homepage to a content page, goes back to the homepage, goes to a content page, goes back to the homepage, goes to a content page. So they're pogoing around your website. That's a signal that something is wrong. You can have a chat window open up, asking the citizen, is there a problem and can I support you with this? Or you can even have a pop-up saying, maybe it's a good idea that you start calling us. So you start doing some gentle nudging and steering to pull people in a different channel to make sure that the customer journey doesn't get stuck. Another way to do that is through blending. So I already mentioned the sort of pop-up of chat on a website. So you start blending a chat channel with a website channel, or you can do things like co-browsing where the customer agent supports you in your online customer journey. So channels start integrating. So in newer multi-channel strategies, we see increasing linkages between the different channels, typically on a sort of channel level. So we have a marketing campaign to steer people to the right channel, or we have one channel integrating with another one. So we see that things start morphing more closely to each other. But the landscape becomes more complicated than we've seen. So since the advent or arrival of multi-channel strategies, we see that the channel landscape has complicated even further on. And important to know notice there is that more channels also equals more cost. So even though we see this eagerness of government agencies to start deploying more channels for the reasons discussed before, there's very often not the realization that this costs initial investment money, but also things such as maintenance and updates and training of your personnel and future updates to the infrastructure and design of your channels. I've been doing some research on mobile apps in the Netherlands. And about 6 years ago, it was very much a hype to have your own mobile app. So every single municipality had a mayor who wanted to have a PR moment with, look at the nice little mobile app of the municipality of Amsterdam, because it was cool and it was sexy. And they often had an initial budget to develop a mobile app. And often these mobile apps tended to be fairly useless because you could see sort of the opening times of City Hall, and you could see when your bins got collected and what the parking restrictions were on your street, but that was pretty much it. And very often it was easy to get the initial budget to develop the app, but there was no budget to keep maintaining it and updating it. And then you get a new iPhone version and you get new Android versions, and your app is no longer compatible. So what we saw in this research is that after a couple of years, we see this thing that's called app rot. The app will still be there, but it's no longer maintained. It's no longer updating, and people don't use it. And the evaluation, so the star ratings of the app will plummet because you haven't thought about cost. More and more channels, and I think that's a more important part, also equal more channel management challenges. So think about this referral. How do I detect that somebody fails in one channel and guide them to another channel? How do I do that when I have 5 or 6 channels? This is much easier to do if you have phone, website, and perhaps chat to support your customers. But more channels also leads to more organizational challenges. Very often we see that different channels are situated or owned by different parts of the organization. So very often we will have a website, but the website is owned by an IT department. And we will have a customer contact center, which will be owned by a service delivery unit. And we will have physical in front desk setting contacts, so counter settings, which will be owned by another part of the organization. So you create organizational silos, and oftentimes these organizational silos don't mix and match. So you can have the different channels with different supportive IT infrastructure because of different ownership in different parts of the organization. And very often it's small things that then cause roadblocks. Managers not getting along, systems being developed in completely different languages that don't connect. So you get more and more of a mess that results from organizational choices and organizational challenges. Research supports that too. This is research comparing channel strategies and obstacles in the EU with Latin America. And we see things like siloing, legacy systems, interoperability of systems, lack of integrated processes being key blockers to developing better functioning channel strategies. So what we're seeing is that a lot of the problems with channel management result from organizational and technical choices in the back offices and organizational components of the organization. And that brings us to omni-channel management, because we've now seen that, simply referring channels or blending channels is not enough to make things work. We need to start integrating channels more and more tightly. And that means integration on the channel level. So we need to have common content repositories in our channels, but also on the organizational level, getting us back to the customer contact question from earlier on. You need to have ownership of all channels in one unit of the organization. In the best case scenario. In the worst case scenario, you need to have very tight relationships between these units to make sure that you share data about what goes wrong, about feedback from your clients, and about the content that you have in those channels. So the future forward is omni-channel service delivery. Here are some definitions from the private sector literature. We can skip that because this brings us very closely to the definition that we've developed for the public sector. It's the holistic management of all available service channels in which all channels are fully integrated on a technical and organizational level to allow the seamless delivery of all services to all segments of the population. Because those things such as clients hopping from channel to channel to channel to channel not only makes the client very unhappy, but it also makes the organization unhappy, because clients need to explain their situation over and over and over and over again because there's no memory, leading to more cost for your organization. And remember how we saw those graphs of customer contacts just exploding as you add more channels to the mix? That leads to more cost. So service delivery gets more expensive, and you want to prevent that from happening. So seamless delivery where all content is the same, ideally optimized for the channel, and where clients have a seamless hop from channel to channel or part of the organization is the way forward. Now, what does that mean? How do you do that? And what are the components of omni-channel management? And then I'll start wrapping up. We're developing a framework of the key elements of what an omni-channel strategy should be. And this is an academic paper. It's under review, so it's not published yet, but it's getting close, and hopefully it'll be accepted. And this is based on the existing literature on omni-channel strategies from both the private and the public sector. And we see that there's sort of two essential components of a good omni-channel strategy, and then three more facilitating components. The first is synchronized content and data. So you need to have one data repository that feeds all your channels to make sure that regardless of where my entry point is, I will get a consistent user experience. That's something that increasingly clients are getting in the private sector and are also increasingly expecting from the public sector. And this is a lot of the work that Sakia is doing in our team to make sure that things like, is my status update or the status of my application available in every channel? Is the content about services and regulations, is it consistent across all channels? So synchronized content and the data that feeds into your channels. Number two is that seamless customer journey. Can I detect when somebody goes wrong in their customer journey by collecting user data? And can I make sure that if I send somebody a letter and asking me to call them, that they have my information at hand so that I don't have to explain my situation over and over and over again? So creating that seamless customer journey across channels. Number three, you then need to start thinking about the channel characteristics. Does the design of my channel match the characteristics of the service? And does it match the capabilities of my clients? And if that is a no, if there's a discrepancy there, I need to start converging those. So I need to redesign my channels to match the, for example, complexity or level of ambiguity of my services and the capabilities of my clients. So you need data to do that. And you need to start integrating channel and service delivery management. Remember how we saw that channel management becomes increasingly an organizational challenge. So you need to start breaking through those silos to bring ownership of the channels and your data under one umbrella. And lastly, continuous feedback and learning. Because behaviors are so flexible and the landscape is changing so quickly, picking up on what your customers are doing, that pogo sticking that I was talking about before, or how they hop from channel to channel, you can measure these things and you can learn from that. But very often it doesn't happen because we will have some logs in our customer contact center and we will have some web analysts looking at web data, but they don't talk and they don't share data. And that obviously is wrong. Very quickly then, going back to the Dutch case, we can skip this. We've talked about this, so we can also skip that because I need to start wrapping up. I wanted to say a few things about the sort of overarching landscape because I think this is typical for many countries. The channel management challenge becomes even bigger if we realize that many customer journeys happen across organizations and across different type of channel infrastructures. Some research from the UK has shown that 80% of all citizens start their online government customer journey on Google. So gov.uk is not the homepage. Google is the homepage. And if Google gets the wrong information, because some website is being scraped by Google and it has old data, then Google will give you the wrong answer. And people will start calling you about that. So we have this confluence of organizations having their own channels. They might collaborate in joint channels. There might be support channels, national portals, search engines. Ideally, you want to take this entire landscape in mind when you start designing channel strategies. What we're also seeing in countries such as the Netherlands is that there's an explosion of online presence. We're seeing that every organization not only wants to have their own website, also very often for typical services, we start building new websites like campaign websites, making sure that people, for example, smoke less or drink less. They will often be dedicated websites and dedicated domains. So we see an explosion, not just of websites, but also of different types of websites for different types of purposes, making things more complicated. This is a bigger picture of what I've shared earlier. So we have this program where we explore the concept, we build a community, and we work on components by different parts of the organization. I think that it's a very nice example of how to do a project like this. So if you're looking for inspiration and if you want to learn more about that, do let me know. This we can skip because Sakia talked about this. This is also interesting because we are trying to take this sort of academic framework and make it practical. In this expert group where we're developing this concept, we are trying to translate this framework into six sort of building blocks. The first is the overall channel strategy. What are you trying to achieve as an organization? What are your goals? And this is where the KPIs come in. Do you want to be focusing on effectiveness, so delivering good services? Is your focus on efficiency? And that could be a legitimate choice. So let's say that there's budget cuts and you need to start focusing on efficiency. So you want your call volume to go down. You want your call handling time to go down. How do you do that? So your overarching strategy, so do you focus on click, call, face? Do you have freedom of choice? Or do you focus on effectiveness, efficiency, or something like that? Will determine a lot of the choices you make further down. The first of that choice is then channel deployment. Which channels in general do I want to start using? And should I start using as many channels as possible to do my thing? So do I need to get a broad mix of channels depending on my services portfolio, or can I do with fewer? The second is channel design. So what is the content design of my channels? What is the UX design of my channels? What is the customer experience of my individual channel, but also across different channels so that I can get the same information tailored to the channel if I hop from channel or if I use different channels to begin with. Then we have channel management. So what are the insights to manage across different channels? So how do we make sure that information doesn't get lost? And how do we make sure that content is the same across all channels? And then we have channel steering. So how do we make sure that we drag or pull the citizens into the channels where they belong? can we find strategies to segment the population and entice them to use channels that are appropriate for their situation? And the last building block we're developing is feedback and learning. So how do we build data infrastructures, and how do we define KPIs that measure the success of customer journeys? We're not there yet, but some of the things that I've been doing in my work is get all channel data from all the silos in one data lake so that we can start measuring those customer journeys. And you see very interesting insights, such as you can nearly correlate when you see that a lot of people get stuck on one topic on your website and subsequently start calling about that. And if you subsequently then analyze these call transcripts, you might find out what's wrong with your web content. And if you then have that information, you can optimize your web content. So getting these feedback loops and learning mechanisms in place across channels will help you optimize your channels and prevent these unwanted and unnecessary calls from happening. So that's pretty much work in progress. And Sakia is working on those components. The community is being built as we speak, but that's also work in progress. And in the future, we want to keep on doing this. We want to refine those building blocks, those 6, refine the concept and build our experiences in this space. And hopefully in a year or so from now, we can have more stuff to share. Then a real quick wrap up in 1 minute, because I'm running over time right now. On the strategic level, I think what we're seeing in the Netherlands, but also other countries, is that, a holistic omnichannel strategy where all channels are being managed under one umbrella in one strategy and by one organizational unit is the way forward, because else you're going to get stuck and you're going to get problems. That also means that you need to start investigating what channels your customers are using, and you need to develop an appropriate set of channels. And it does not mean more channels is better. It means you need to account for the skills and capabilities of your population and build an appropriate coverage for that. If you want to do that, you need to set clear goals and KPIs based on a clear mission, vision, strategy. So do we want to save money? Do we want to increase customer satisfaction? Or do we want to be awesome at public service delivery? And what does that mean for our KPIs, such as the average handling time, which is an often used metric in customer contact centers? What do we want to do with that? Do we want it to go down? Do we want it to go up, perhaps? So what are the metrics we want to focus on? Second is channel management is not just about channels. It cannot be a standalone topic. So it needs to be embedded in your service strategy and perhaps into your organizational strategy. How do we make sure that we start merging the channels into one organizational unit? Or if we cannot do that, how can we build organizational structures or communication structures or collaboration structures across those silos? Another thing that has been ignored in multi-channel strategies and in governments in general is learning as foundational element. The only way to improve your service delivery is to learn from what's happening in your channels and what your customers are saying. That's the only way also to adapt to a quickly evolving environment. So get that data in one place and create good research programs where you measure customer satisfaction and we pick up upon their complaints and their feedback. And building critical stakeholder support. If that one manager doesn't get along, you're basically screwed, to say it bluntly. Involving leadership, staff, and customers, in my experience, is the key to success. Then to make it more practical, and now I'm really at the very end, that common content is one of the principles behind omnichannel strategies, making sure that every channel is being fed with the same content. So you can start by collaborating across channels to learn about where your content is, what your content strategy is, who the content managers and editors are of the different systems, and put them in a room to create one common content agenda to make sure that your content is the same, but also that your content is updated at the exact same time. Analyzing common customer journeys. So picking up upon your web data, your call center data, your social media data to see where the problems are across all those channels, and simply asking customers. What we've done often in the Netherlands is adding 1 or 2 more questions to a phone script to ask for customer feedback. Where did you start your customer journey and did you get stuck? Have you been on our website and did you not find the answer you were looking for? So asking customers and listening to their complaints and feedback can really give you quick insights to feed into your omni-channel strategy. Consider your core set of channels. So more channels does not equate better. I'm not saying that cannibalization will not happen, because it might, but channel elimination should be a topic. Do you really need a dedicated app? The answer in 99% of all cases is no, you do not. You're probably better off with a responsive website that scales nicely to your phone, or a progressive web app, than a dedicated app. You don't need ChatGPT just yet. You don't need a chatbot just yet. You're better off having an awesome portal and an awesomely functioning website than all these bells and whistles. And break through silos. We've talked about that. And that brings me to the end. And there again, as promised, there's Sakia's email and my email if you have any more questions for me. And I hope I have addressed all questions in the chat. I think I did, but if not, please raise your hand and let me know.
Thank you so much, Willem, already for the time being, and really covering things in such an extensive manner. We will make the presentation available, I mean, with your consent, of course.
Yeah, of course.
I see Goran's hand. Can I propose, Goran, that we maybe continue immediately with the colleagues from Montenegro, because I understand they also have a busy agenda throughout the rest of the morning, and that we can come back to also Willem and Willem's presentation in like the closing discussion afterwards. Would that work? Yeah. So thanks for now. Willem, stay with us. Stay tuned for the discussion afterwards.
Of course.
Then lovely, because then with this, I would like to move to the colleagues and friends from Montenegro. We have Mr. Vladimir Rajkovic with us, having a long experience within the Montenegrin health system, holding several positions. Currently being the Chief Information Officer, System Officer in the Integrated Health Care Information System, and really one of the persons that was from the start involved and really throughout the various stages leading the projects of developing the e-healthcare system. So with this, dear Vladimir, I would kindly hand over the floor and the screen to you. So feel free to share your presentation and to take over the floor. Please, Vladimir.
Hello from everyone from Montenegro. I'm Vladimir Rajkovic, and I prepared this presentation, but Leila Rekovic with us in this time. She is director of IT department, and she will talk about our services. So enjoy next 20 minutes. I will share our screen.
We can see it, Vladimir. I think you just need to put this on presentation mode, and I think then we're good. But we can already see it at this stage.
Just a minute.
Yes, lovely. Excellent.
Can you see our presentation? Yes.
Excellent. Looks lovely. Perfect.
We will start now.
Perfect.
Hello, and from me, Leila Rekovic is here. With this presentation, we will briefly introduce you to the integrated healthcare information system in Montenegro developed by the Health Insurance Fund. Then, as a core focus, we will talk about the e-health platform on which electronic services for patients rely. A little about the numbers, and then about each of the services individually. Finally, a few notes about future plans and development directions. The integrated healthcare information system began its development back in 2000. planning, designing, administration, and maintenance responsibility have been under the IT sector of Health Insurance Fund for over 20 years now. During this period, the system has rapidly expanded and, to this day, has encompassed almost all healthcare facilities and institutions in Montenegro. The slide displays healthcare institutions which are part of this unique information system. On the next slide, you can see the numbers that best illustrate the size and complexity of this system. So there are 13 information systems integrated into a single integrated healthcare system platform with 3,000 computers, over 5,000 users, at more than 600 locations. There are approximately 400 legal entities using this system. The diagram demonstrates what we already mentioned, a continuous progress and advancement in the development of this system. It reflects the speed of growth and system coverage, and we hope that the dynamics of development and improvement will remain at the same level in the future. Due to this complex system with interconnected modules, absolutely interoperability, and the vast amount of data, the idea of some form of digital transformation of the healthcare information system emerged in 2070, but this time for the perspective of patients. The IT sector of Fund, with its own resources and in collaboration with partners, is developing eHealth, a unique platform that underpins 10 electronic services intended for the citizens of Montenegro. All of this aimed at providing greater accessibility to healthcare services. In this direction, the e-zdravlje.me portal has been created, which contains all the information and allows access to the mentioned services. In addition, applications for Android and iOS smartphones have been developed. All users of health insurance in Montenegro have the right to use these services. Access is granted by entering the health insurance card number or personal identification card in combination with a PIN code, which can be obtained online or in person at institution. We can be proud of significant numbers when it comes to service usage analytics, as you can see on the slide, which nearly 320,000 users, over 17 million visits to the portal, 100,000 downloads of the Android app, and over 25,000 downloads of the iOS app. Considering that Montenegro has a population of no more than 600,000 inhabitants, it is evident how successful and popular this platform has become among our citizens. On this slide, there is a list of services developed so far, which we will try to present and explain their purpose through a brief description. For each of the services in the upper right corner, we will provide the numbers that best illustrate their usage and functionality. First service which developed is service for scheduling. Has been operating in 2017. It's called e-zakazivanje, or e-scheduling, through which patients can schedule appointments online with their chosen doctor in primary healthcare centers, chosen doctor for adults, chosen doctor for women, and chosen doctor for children. E-scheduling allows or-alone appointment scheduling, as well as checking, canceling, or changing scheduled appointments. So far, we have recorded nearly 12 million visits to this service. Next service is e-recept or e-prescription, is an electronic service that allows patients to access information about prescribed and dispensed prescription via internet using advanced technologies and devices, PC, smartphones, tablets, etc. Patients can view details about their prescribed and active prescriptions at any time on their account, as well as information about prescriptions that have been dispensed in the last 6 months, including where and when they were dispensed. This enhances the accessibility of information for citizens and insurance holders in domain of healthcare, especially considering that printed versions of prescriptions are no longer in use in the healthcare system in Montenegro. To date, there have been over 1,500,000 prescription views. Next services is e-analysis or e-lab. This is an electronic service that allows patients to access the results of biochemical laboratory analysis via internet using appropriate application and modern generation devices. The service was developed for insurance holders with the goal of making information about provided services, analysis, and laboratory test results available to patients as quickly as possible. This way, patients can chronologically track and search for the results of biochemical analysis conducted in primary healthcare centers. There have been over 4 million views or laboratory test results today. Next service we developed is e-pharmacy, e-apotheka or e-pharmacy, which is an electronic service designed for citizens or patients, developed with the aim of providing information about the availability of medicines in all pharmacies across Montenegro that have contract with the Health Insurance Fund for supplying injured individuals with medications. Through the portal and mobile application, insurance holders receive precise information about which pharmacies they can obtain their prescribed therapy from. This service becomes particularly important in case of potential changes in the availability of specific medicines, specifically in situation of shortages or unavailability of certain drugs and medications. There have been nearly 400,000 views to check the availability of therapy through this service. Next service we developed is e-osiguranje or e-insurance. This is an electronic service that allows citizens or insurance holders to access the status of their health insurance, serving as the basis for their right to healthcare services in healthcare institution in Montenegro with cost covered by the Health Insurance Fund. In addition to this, citizens or insurance holders can also access information about their contribution payer. The system has recorded over 350,000 downloads to date. Next service is e-ostvarivanje prava or claiming rights, exercise of rights, is an electronic service designed in a way to provide all insurance holders of the Health Insurance Fund with access to documents related to their entitlements under health insurance. There have been approximately 400,000 views of specific decisions and rolling through this service. E-ordering or e-appointment or e-naručivanje is an electronic service designed for Health Insurance Fund insurance holders and provides electronic booking service for electronic prescription therapy for chronic patients, reports for calculating wage compensation sick leave during temporary incapacity for work, and certificates issued by selected doctors. This service experienced significant expansion during the COVID-19 pandemic, when it helped avoid direct contact between healthcare professionals and the most vulnerable group, chronic patients. The system has recorded nearly 800,000 services provided through this service. One more service on this side is e-COVID-19, an electronic service developed during the COVID-19 pandemic, intended for insurance holders who were tested for the presence of the new coronavirus, with the purpose of receiving feedback on their test results. This service also made a significant contribution during the pandemic, primarily in avoiding physical contact and providing timely information to citizens about the presence of the virus. The fact that nearly 3 million test results were downloaded electronically speaks to the effectiveness of this service. Electronic economic card, or EEK, is an electronic service that allows insurance holders to access information about the cost associated with exercising their rights under health insurance, primarily obtained through the health insurance fund, the cost of accessing healthcare services obtained in public and private healthcare institutions, as well as the costs related to other rights for which there are electronic records in the integrated healthcare information system. In this way, insurance holders can review the amounts owed from mandatory health insurance or the health insurance fund that have been spent on exercising their rights. There have been approximately 400,000 visits on this service. E-vaccinal carton is the vaccination record, is an electronic service that allows citizens, insurance holders, to access their vaccination status for vaccines according to the mandatory immunization schedule. The electronic vaccination record includes a list of vaccines from the regular vaccination schedule, along with the recommended timing for each vaccine. Since it was recently developed, we have recorded approximately 9,000 visits to this service so far. At the end, regarding further development and possibilities, we would like to emphasize once again that the well-developed integrated healthcare information system under the responsibility of the Health Insurance Fund provides numerous opportunities for further development and improvements. In the near future, the plan and desire are to develop a new service called e-health record, which will gather and display a wide range of data for patients in one place, structured and presented in a way that is most important to the patient. The good foundation and source of data are within the integrated healthcare information system, are episodes, medical history, allergies, medication, intervention, procedures, vaccinations, hospital treatments, specialist reports, referrals, test results, and more. And finally, these services are one of the channels in the health system of Montenegro which available patients. There are traditional channels like phone calls, direct contact with the medicine staff and doctors. And
just one more option.
And the aim of this presentation is present one of more option or channel we have in Montenegro. Thank you.
And thank you so much indeed, both Leila and Vladimir, for preparing this lovely presentation and for being present here today. We are well familiar here at the OECD Sigma with the e-health system in Montenegro, and it's really impressive to see. Before launching a question myself, just checking for the audience if someone from the audience would like to raise.
Sorry for interrupting, but the colleagues inform me that they have urgent meeting, therefore they would need to go, unfortunately. So...
Okay. So they need to run immediately. So then let me then thank Vladimir and Liliana once more for their presentation. So thanks, Leila, and thanks, Vladimir. And then we will have more time afterwards to also discuss and to continue to discuss with Willem and with Emir. Thanks again, colleagues.
Thank you, and you can send any question by the mail if you need answers about these services.
Good. Thanks once more, colleagues. Thanks once more.
Thank you. Bye.
So with this and without any further delay, then we move to Emir in Sarajevo. So good morning, well, close to lunchtime already. Emir, thanks for still being with us. Emir Ramadanovic is the chief of party at the USAID, the Bosnia-Herzegovina e-governance activity. Really has a long-standing experience and history in digital e-governance across the world, including the US and also Europe. And as said, he is now doing the work with USAID on the registration system in BIH. So I would, without any further ado, Emir, pass you the floor and pass you the screen to explain us much more about your work and what is happening these days and past days in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Please, Emir.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you for having me and giving me an opportunity to present the project, what we are doing in Bosnia Herzegovina. I'm chief of party, I'm implementing partner for USAID project in Bosnia. We started in April 2020 and have very interesting project in the digital transformation in Bosnia. I tried to kind of share the video I have, but it's not letting me to choose. Okay, okay, I'll go with the presentation because I'm not sure that I can run the video of the project, what tells better what we do and what we plan to finish in Bosnia. I hope everybody sees the screen. Yep.
Yes, we can see your screen, Emir. All good.
Excellent. As mentioned, started in April 2020. Not really the great time about starting in parallel with COVID. And basically, this is the scope of our project. Basically, this is what our project got to do from April 20 until March 25. It's basically our scope says, okay, you have to develop a construction permitting system and implement in 5 municipalities, help certified authorities to with your signature to be widely used in Bosnia. Then 3 projects with public procurement agency, centralized public procurement, open data, and register of certificates. Then 2 projects with federal inspection. One is border inspection management system. Another one is for internal inspection in Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And all together. We have CSOs working with us and looking what we do, and they will be our voice for the public of how things have been done, raising the voice about corruption or anything what's going on. There was one sentence in our scope. It says like implement e-signature and interoperability into your project, which really gives us additional dimension of what we do and how we do. So implementing e-signature, it's for all our systems, what we are developing. It's a challenge by itself because Bosnia and Herzegovina is not at a mature level for everything what we are going to do. Then we have to do we have to do like electronic presentation, or more better known as electronic identification, interoperability wherever is possible, and modernize the legal framework. Really, a legal framework, I want to point out, is a great challenge in Bosnia. So it's a lot of work on this part, and interesting with the complexity of our government. We are working with 20 different government institutions and 4 level of the administrative government in Bosnia. So we have like a municipality as the lowest level, then cantons, entities, and state level. So everybody, all levels of government are involved, and for our implementation and the legal work, we really had to do a lot of research and see what's the state the country is right now. And our analysis is telling us it's not really in good shape, but we'll talk about it later on. This is a nice picture of our project, and in reality, this is really what we are working on. So Willem is laughing, smiling. This is really what we do. Those are our counterparts, like inspections, municipalities for construction permitting system, public procurement agencies. We have CSOs, and all our lines here, our errors are really interoperability. So this is really simplified picture what's going on. So to make it a little bit interesting, to have for a citizen or the business to request a service, has to be like a portal, has to be electronic identification and electronic signature. So it's a lot of work, and we had to multiply this work on many different applications. So we had to think about some different model, because spaghetti model ain't going to work in the future, or it may work, but it's going to be hard to maintain. So I would say the complexity we faced brought us to the next slide, and we are proposing advanced digital architecture. It's really nothing. We are not reinventing the wheels. We are just using the best practice and using what everybody out there is using. So we start from the left-hand side, say, okay, we're going to be using building blocks to build part of the infrastructure, because a lot more is to do than it's in our project. So we have implemented 3 modules. It's electronic identification, electronic signature, and the service delivery platform for this purpose. The idea is to use this advanced digital architecture is because it's advanced. That's one thing, and second thing, it's really if we want to move faster, we are already behind. We are already behind the countries in the region, and we do have government service bus, that's interoperability platform, but it's really I would say in poor shape and needs to be updated. So we are hoping then this platform, GSB, General Service Bus, will be upgraded, and the rollout of the developed services will be a lot easier, and the digital transformation in the country will really speed up in the future. So on the right hand side, we can see our counterparts or our institutions we are working on. So it really looks I would say as supposed to be with advanced digital infrastructure. But the thing is, in Bosnia, it's a situation, maybe you hear a lot more about something else than talk about digital transformation. And we are, unfortunately, I can really say we are still left behind in the last century, unfortunately. But I'm not going to complain. We're going to do what we can do to improve this and make it to the next level. So why this building blocks? Why this platform on the left-hand side? Of course, there's one reason. It's to have a portal, to be a government portal, and to be used by everybody. Of course, it's one approach, but this is like a centralized approach, because if everybody does own stuff here in the country, it's going to be really hard to develop, to grow into digital transformation. We are already behind, and how we're going to get there if we don't kind of put things together and start developing our services. We have one service here on this portal. This is for issuing permits for in constructions. So this platform is not, it's very important to say, this platform is not for our project. This platform for the government, everybody to use it, expand it, and add additional services. My apology, is not in English, but those are life events, health, tax administration, pension, and so on and so on. So everybody is familiar with this. So because I would say digital transformation not to be present and in between citizens, because adoption of the e-signature is still kind of like slow in the country, and there's a lot of question why we should use centralized portal, and because I mentioned the 4 levels of governments. Everybody's doing their own stuff, but nothing is synchronized. Nothing is, I would say, nothing, or some few institutions are talking to each other or exchanging data and files. So we, as a project, had to do, or we did a lot of, I would say, explanation or education why we should have this approach with the portal. So for easier understanding is to have a one-stop shop for services, have a electronic ID and signature implemented with the platform. The portal or the platform is set up to for all administrative levels. So for four levels of the government can be used. So adding, as mentioned earlier, adding in new services really made it it's easy, and the transformation can be really faster and faster. Maintenance, we know it's optimized because more services, more users, cheaper maintenance and development. Of course, talking about eco-friendly environment, that's something. A lot of question we got on the issue of how to integrate, because everybody has something on their own. So the way we explained is, I would say, easy integration, straightforward integration with the existing portal with all levels. So this really something, this diagram here, as you don't see anything, is really for more for local use and challenges what we have here. And everybody, a lot of things is going on. A lot of donations are doing something, but things are kind of very slow and very uncoordinated. There are two different paths. One path is this one. Everybody's doing own stuff, no coordination, and probably we'll have something 2029 or maybe 2030. So, or for the government to take our platform and use it and enable efficient digital transformation. So we have set the grounds for digital transformation, and this platform and everything on this project is a grant to the government, so there's no cost. And if we do kind of like any kind of ROI, return on investment, what we have done and how much would cost to do on your own, there's no brainer. To me, there's no brainer which way to go. So this is something what we are talking about it with counterparts, explaining our approach, because lots of question is, should we develop, should we go with the open source, so should we use proprietary software, and so on and so on. I mean, to me, if you're getting something for free versus something to develop down the road, it's a no-brainer. This platform is a product, and that's very important to know. So, our challenges. I mean, we all have challenges. So it's not like this is something what is going on probably everywhere in the region, but I think a little bit more in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Everything what we do on the project and me personally is always like to say, not I'm doing just PowerPoint presentation, I'm presenting to the people. I like to say, but like to send a message then what should be done, what could be done, how it could be done. It doesn't have to be really accepted. It's a no-brainer. I didn't reinvent this. This is out there, just to use it appropriately. So the main factor is everywhere in the world is a political will. So with the four level of the government, we don't have a designated ministry for digital transformation or agency for digital transformation. So that would be really, to me, the first step, because four level doing the same things and it's happening, and it's really not the most efficient. So what should be this ministry or agency of digital transformation do? They will really coordinate internal and donor activities, modernize the legal framework, because we are way behind with the modern laws, and that's something what really is a priority, probably one of the top priorities. Then train employees. So train employees, because lots of people have left the government work, going for the private companies, and it's nothing just happening in Bosnia. It's happening all over in the region, and the lack of quality resources is something what needs to be done. Things like make sustainable organization. That's really from the political will. Everything's going to be I would say logical. If there's a will, everything will fall in place. So fall in place, fiscal framework. We in the previous presentation mentioned really fiscal framework. We need to have a budget to develop new services, to maintain and improve the services. I mean, Willem was talking about artificial intelligence. We are talking about basic stuff here. So, and at the end of the day, change management, because with the digital transformation, a lot of processes will change. People have to be trained, retrained, and put in the right place to perform better. And one of the digital enablers list of again, this is something what we like to show it's not just we talk what we say and how, and what is the way, what to do. I have here like 10, I would say, top priorities for the government, what needs to be done. So I'm not gonna read them because you all know what they are. And what this project has done is implemented electronic identification, electronic signature, the platform, and service delivery platform, and e-portal. So it's not just we talk about this, we are doing it and improving, say, position in the digital transformation, or enabling government to soon take over and build on this what we have done. And very, very important thing is donor coordination, because there are some projects going on. They will do probably similar things. They will do some of the checkboxes we already done, but we, as a project and USAID, and our donor USAID, are working to doing as much coordination as possible to making things happen and speed up digital transformation. So we, at the end of this presentation, we came to the point why we are here. So it's very important here to see the process for infrastructure permitting system. It's important to understand, because I'll have a small video show later on how this is really done in the real world. So we have a 3-level of here shown on this process. We have applicants that may be citizens or the business. Everything was happening in the municipalities here, and obtaining approvals, opinion that's from the company, from utilities company. So the process goes, the applicant logs into our platform, identify itself with the electronic ID, and then on the platform has a profile. Profile is any profile with the media, social media platforms, and then chooses the request which wants to submit, fill in the form, electronically signs it and submit it. It goes down to municipality. At the municipality, it has been assigned to administrative lead, who is assigning to different departments within the municipality, and notifications goes to external companies, utility companies. They all have to give acknowledge or say accept, approve the agree with the permitting process. And we are collecting, or the administrative lead collects all the information, and everything is okay, everybody gives approval. Then with all collected, I would say approval or all agreed, the document is ready to be issued and signed by administrative lead, and then goes to assistant mayor, deputy mayor, who signs it and delivers it to electronically signs it, delivers to the applicant in the profile. We are there were different projects here in Bosnia trying to kind of like pin down this very complex process. And I talked to Goran on one occasion, and what was kind of like inspiration to us. And with everything what's going on with the country, and everything what's going on with digital transformation, the stage we are in, and comparing what could be, what's really similar, where is similar situation as us, economically, demographically, and everything else. And inspiration to me, inspiration was what has been done in Macedonia with the EcoStructure permitting system. They have like 81 municipality and city of Skopje. They're all digital. They said like bid, for example, January 1, 2024, we all go live. So there's no more manual submission of requests. And they have done really good job with the interoperability and improve average days and so on. Basically, everything is 100% paperless by the law and transparent. So that's kind of like where we are heading. So now I will share exactly what we have done. I'll take another. Hopefully, I'll find another scenario. Okay, I cannot see my video. Give me just a second, please. I'm using wrong thing, right? I wanna share with you if you can hear. Can you hear me?
We can see and we can read the subtitles, but we don't hear the sound, Emir. But probably with the subtitles, that might be sufficient at this stage. Yeah, now it comes, the sound.
OECD projekat EU će riješiti neke od suštinskih problema koji predstavljaju problem građanima, poduzećima i vlasti u Bosni i Hercegovini. Putem digitalizacije automatizirat ćemo procese javnih usluga, povećavajući transparentnost i efikasnost, štedeći vrijeme i novac, eliminirajući korupciju. Za građane i preduzeća u Bosni i Hercegovini će podržati upotrebu elektronskog potpisa u cijeloj državi i pomoći Bosni i Hercegovini u digitalizaciji zakonodavstva i elektronskoj upravi. Pomoći inspekcijskim službama da efikasnije i lakše osiguraju da se preduzeća u Bosni i Hercegovini pridržavaju zakona. Uvesti lakše i jednostavnije elektronsko izdavanje građevinskih dozvola u pilot opštinama. Podržati Agenciju za javne nabavke Bosne i Hercegovine u kreiranju institucionalnog okvira za centralizovanje javne nabavke, postižući efikasnije i transparentne procedure, manje podložne korupciji. Omogućiti organizacijama civilnog društva da efikasno prate procese javnih usluga i lakše prijavljaju nepravilnosti. Koristeći nova digitalna rješenja, OECD projekat EU će implementirati e-propis i unaprijediti interoperabilnost u svim nivoima vlasti u Bosni i Hercegovini, što je preduslov za uspješnu digitalnu transformaciju. Digitalizacija će imati trenutno pozitivan utjecaj na građane, građanke, preduzeća i vlasti u Bosni i Hercegovini.
Okay, now we have here. Can you see now?
The screen is still full black, but I think if you press play, then it will come.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
There we are. There we are.
I just want to make sure then, everybody knows then this video is really made only for this presentation. And a few days ago, it's not a professional, it's very simplified version of what we have done. So if you see anything, maybe something can be different, but something, if there's some error or something, it's this has been on the fly, has been done on the fly. So why we do this video? Basically, we like to show what has been done and show it to the public. So basically, our public appearance in Bosnia, we do like a short presentation, less than like an hour, and then we have a showroom to show everything what's been done and what has been accomplished. Here, like I said, will be a simplified procedure issuing urban permit or consent. So I have several on different, say, a different part of the video. I have some speed up and because it would take a very long time to have a complete process, but it's really a very simplified process. And I'll be stopping the video and talking over just for better explanation. Basically, the institution we're using here is in use in municipality attention, and we are looking at issuing urban electronic permit. So we'll start here. The applicant here is searching the governance portal, chooses the permits and the construction, registers, view all the services, and this is the profile, user profile. Just a second. This is the user is really looking here. Its profile sees all the personal information. Those are requests, all requests submitted in the past. It's very similar. You can see the history of all requests in the past, and you can see the status of the requests in the past. And then those are the services that are available to the citizens or to the businesses, and all information they have been received. So now we have passed this application information. Now we are going the phase where we're submitting the request. Students like the service, municipality attention system will automatically populate all the information for the user from the profile, and then the user is reviewing this document has been generated, and then will electronically sign. And then when it signs, it is filed, and the user can see their own request, what has been submitted here. So all the information, all requests have all requests are in the profile. So conduct proceeding. Now we are moving to the designated municipal official who is logging in, and then complete work has been done here at the administrative portal, which is dedicated to the government. So now the government official is doing what's necessary. This administrative lead verifies application form and mandatory documents. So okay. Yep. Now is this request is is being, I would say, delivered to internal, external users, internal within a municipality, and external to the utility company. So as I said, the simplified procedure, and we have only one single approval from the legal department. So all the users, of course, are defined and specified within the system. Now we can see, I mean, it is in the local language, so I'll have to talk more about it, where administrative lead creates specific tasks for the legal officer to obtain approval. Then documentations are submitted once the application, and they will be available all the time there. So so all the documents are within our platform, within the system, and available at any time for review. So now we're going to the next step, issuing and delivering permit, where administrative lead reviews assigned to the urbanist prepared draft urban document. Urbanists see here, we see all the statuses just a few seconds ago. It is very important because everything is tracked here, like submission requests, when it has been going the process, and what the status is at this time. So it's really the whole history is out there. So the urbanist goes to on-site, conducts assessment, and prepare official output document using template. Uploads all the documents, and the system will notify admin lead to take over and to sign. Now still urbanist is working, preparing documents. Okay, now we have administrative lead takes over. It's using template documents that are generated, populating necessary protocol information, and uploads documents to be digitally signed. Then admin lead opens the final documents, digitally signs it, routes back to documents to the supervisor, to the assistant mayor. Let's take, okay, assistant mayor opens document, views it, digitally sign it. Okay. Look it again, it's signed, and now it's being sent to the user, and user will be able to see his or her request, all documentation, and so on. That's document is digitally signed, remains available in the portal. System can download it and print it if needed, whatever to do. That's all. Okay, thank you very much. That's all from my side.
Thank you so much, Emir, for well, putting this into a wider perspective first, but very important, wider perspective on the digital transformation efforts, challenges, true, but also achievements in the country, which, as we all know, it's not the easiest country to do this. And I think you rightly pointed out to some blocking factors. I mean, the lack of a, well, call it coordinating agency or actor, institution. I think this is really an element that we also have highlighted as Sigma in our assessment reports. So definitely, but also really nice how you then also illustrated this with the work that you are doing and with this construction permit system. I know, colleagues, that it's we're already running over lunch, but still I would like to offer the possibility for colleagues online, if you have questions for Emir in this case, or for Willem, or more in general, please do so. Then we can still take them before we close off. Please, colleagues, the floor is yours. Just raise your hand or put them into the Q&A section. I see Goran. Goran, you can go first, please.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you all, Emir and Willem, for nice presentations. Going first to Emir, since your USA-led a project, I assume that the USA have also shaped a bit the methodology of your project's approach. My focus was generally attracted by the change management aspect, and I'm wondering to which extent you would try to set a methodology which does actually support innovation from this change management point of view, using different tools or ways like sandbox for experimentation or anything else. And for Willem, I have a question that I wanted to ask before. How, Willem, are you actually going to in the future support the aspect of real-time feedback and adaptability? It might be the challenge, and I understand that you have discussed about data silo breaking and making the data lakes in order to have the access at real time for any kind of data. Still, I would wonder how you're going to deal with this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Goran. Basically, it's really hard to give you like a straight answer because of the situation we found on the ground. Is basically infrastructure is not such a great level. Human resources, people are not there. Security is not on the level supposed to be, or has a lot of space for improvements. Interoperability, same way. So we try to set, I would say, set the grounds for digital transformation, at least with counterparts. We, as a project, we have our own scope, and that's what we do. And we cannot come out from that, I would say, from the scope. But with the counterparts we are working, we are implementing the best practices out there, and sharing our knowledge, expertise, and everything with other donors, with everybody who wants to be involved with digital transformation, to kind of like have a one voice and go to one directions. And we, as a project, trying to do innovative way, but everything is really kind of like we are in the box, so cannot go outside that box because of the contractual limitations.
May I just add, would you confirm that based on your experience going towards experimentation, but actually not only to experiment, but also to contribute to improvement of the services, one of the solutions could be setting the habit of having multifunctional teams and cross-sectoral cooperation as default behavior and functioning of the systems?
Definitely. I mean, the top-down approach in this case is something that needs to happen, and the coordination between institutions and donors, that's really what needs to happen. And once that coordination is established, I think everything will move into the right direction, honestly. And we really have to know then limitations we have through the contract. So we are very limited how much we can go out and do different things. But we do experiment, and everything what's good for the project and good for the government, we do implement.
Should I jump in? And sorry.
Yes, please.
So I don't think we're real time yet, but I think we're getting there. And what I mean is threefold. The first is increasingly we are able to collect data in real time. For example, many websites, you'll get a little pop-up box that says, has this information helped you? And in the past, we would download that information once a week or once a month and look at the data and present it to our managers and be happy with that. Nowadays, because we are getting the data directly into the cloud, we can have real-time dashboards showing us the validity of that information and what we can do with that information. So if we're seeing that web pages are not helpful, we can see that not instantly, but we can see that pretty in near real time and do something with that. The second is by use of things like natural language processing and clustering algorithms, we're increasingly seeing that, for example, customer contact interactions via call or email are being transcribed and analyzed on the fly to pick up signals. Signals like, I've looked on your website, but I couldn't find the information, or I have a complaint about something. And because we can do these things increasingly in near real time, because we're getting the call in, we can translate it, do speech to text, and then analyze it in the cloud. We can, well, not instantly, but with hours or days delay, pick up on signals that something is wrong and pick up on this client feedback and make adjustments. Not real time yet, but getting there. And the third component is because in omni-channel environments where you, for example, have one content team responsible for website, knowledge bank on your phone, process information in forms, so that they're all the same people. Because you're getting this feedback immediately, you can make the changes in your form, on your website, in your knowledge bank, in your scripts instantly. So it's not real time yet, but it is getting there. And I'm firmly of the conviction that in 5 to 10 years, we will be able to do this in minutes. And now it's days, and we're slowly moving into hours. But in advanced data organizations, it will become minutes. So if somebody calls and says, I've spotted an error on a website, I think we can change that in minutes in a couple of years from now.
Thanks, Willem. Thanks, Goran, for the questions. Other questions, colleagues online? Anything you would like to ask both to Emir or to Willem, coming back to some of the things he mentioned before? Looking to the screen if I don't miss any kind of hands, but I don't see them immediately. I also don't see any questions in the chat, and I realize that we are heading into, already passed into the lunchtime. So just saying that if no further questions from the audience, then I would really like to thank Emir for preparing the materials and the presentation so nicely. Also big thanks again, Emir, and success with the rest of the implementation of the very important work. Then also would like to thank Willem for preparing together with us this webinar over the past weeks, and also for today making all the efforts in preparing in such an elaborated way. I think the material is really rich, Willem. So if we can share with the audience, that would be really appreciated. Also your contacts, as you said, if colleagues would like to follow up, then I think that's also a very good way to do so. And then also let me thank Goran for the excellent support in preparing, also being on standby now to running this short webinar, but also in preparing everything, not only for this, as I said before, but also for all the previous ones. So with this, dear colleagues, we conclude the third one of this year. And as said, stay tuned for the one that we will do on interoperability and also on the eIDAS 2.0 in the course of early next year. We will keep you informed. We have your coordinates, and we will also reach out on the channels via social media. So you will also find our upcoming webinar over there. If you have suggestions related to topics that you would like to see scheduled, or things that you would like to present yourself, you know how and where to find us. So reach out, and happy to design something on a topic that you find interesting, or as I said, on something that you like to present. And otherwise we will do some further thinking for the future and come up with a new series if there is still some interest. For now, thank you so much, dear colleagues. Have a great rest of the day, a great rest of the week. And then in approaching the end of the year, if we don't hear or see each other in this year, then also all the best wishes for the end of the year, and already some good wishes for the next one, in which we will see each other very soon. So thanks for now, dear colleagues, and stay tuned. All the best, and take good care. Bye-bye.
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 Ciao, ciao.
Bye to all. Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.